Ads are annoying, but ad blockers prevent publishers from making money. What if you could support your favorite websites, YouTube creators, Twitch streamers, social accounts, and many more ad-free and without paying anything, and even make some money yourself? It's not a pipe dream, it's airtime. Go to airtime.bogosity.tv and get the browser extension, and you'll earn cryptocurrency for the sites you visit, and so will the publisher. This is not a crypto miner. You and the publisher will both get part of the reward from current miners of the BitTube cryptocurrency, with no middleman taking a cut. Even if the publisher hasn't signed up yet, his tube will be put into a dedicated wallet that he can claim upon sign up. You can also use your tube to tip publishers and even purchase products. Airtime monetizes users and publishers with no ads or crypto miners. Go to airtime.bogosity.tv and start making money now. Welcome to the Bogosity Podcast for the week of February 17, 2019, the podcast that takes the time to touch the morning. This is your host, Shane Killian. Let's devegetate the news of the bogus. So, Panera Bread tried this experiment where they had stores where people could decide for themselves how much to pay for the sake of poor people who couldn't afford it otherwise. What could possibly go wrong? I will say this, their hearts were in the right place. They didn't whine to tax the rich or whatever, have other people do what they say should be done. They put their money where their collective mouth is and gave it their best shot. Panera once had 5 such cafes called Panera Cares, but it just didn't work. And now, the company is closing the last Panera Cares location in Boston. According to the company, quote, "Despite our commitment to this mission, it's become clear the continued operation of the Boston Panera Cares is no longer viable. We're working with the current bakery cafe associates affected by the closure to identify alternate employment opportunities within Panera and Aubon-Payne." Most of the needy the stores attracted were homeless people who couldn't afford to pay at all, but this turned away a lot of paying customers. Former employee Sharon Davis said about one customer, quote, "She comes up and goes, 'Oh my God, these people stink. I can't stand eating like this.' And I said, 'Well, I'm really sorry, but they are entitled to a meal.'" But it does mean that this issue is driving away customers who were in a better position to pay. Employees also found themselves having to deal with issues they hadn't been trained to handle, like mental health issues and drug use in the bathrooms. They had to learn to be impromptu social workers, which took time away from serving paying customers. But a lot of people who really were needy didn't want to go there because it made them feel ashamed. It was mostly taken advantage of by college students who just didn't care. And there just weren't enough people paying their suggested donation or more to make up for it. Only half of customers paid the suggested price, and around another 20% paid more. Which sounds like a lot. Most people really are generous, but it still just wasn't enough to make up for all the people paying next to nothing or nothing at all. People need to understand basic economics. Panera were told at the start by a lot of people that this wouldn't work. They had a fun time being all smug and laughing at the cynics, but hopefully it seems they've learned a valuable lesson. Say, if you're tired of the promos in this podcast, well, the patrons got it early and with no ads or promos. Just go to patreon.bogosity.tv and donate at any level. Do you have children? Or nieces or nephews? Are you homeschooling? Or just want to counter some of the socialist indoctrination most children get in school? If so, go to bogosity.tv/TuttleTwins, and you'll be taken to a website where you can get some great books for elementary-age children. The Tuttle Twins books are books about liberty and free market economics that include children's versions of Bastiat's The Law, Leonard Read's I, Pencil, and Hayek's The Road to Serfdom, as well as books about the Federal Reserve and how regulations protect business cronies. They'll learn about the harm caused by eminent domain, or regulations passed in the name of safety, and fundamental concepts of liberty. And as you can see from the sample pages on the website, they're all easy to read and nicely illustrated. They're just $9.99 a piece, or get a special discount as well as free bonuses when you purchase all 5. You can even buy in bulk to donate to schools and local libraries. So get the Tuttle Twins books at bogosity.tv/TuttleTwins. Here's another story on how horrible immigration and customs enforcement is. Apparently, they've run out of actual criminal immigrants to find and deport, so with so few worst of the worst examples to satisfy Trump's policies, they've decided to go against immigrants trying to go to college. According to federal indictments, 8 people were arrested and indicted for immigration fraud, conspiracy to commit visa fraud, and harboring aliens for profit because they attempted to enroll at a fake university so they could stay in the country under a student visa. ICE, in this federal indictment, under penalty of perjury, is lying. What's actually happening was they set up the fake university themselves. The students who enrolled had visas that were still valid. They were still in the country legally. They were going to expire, but they were allowed to stay in the U.S. if they continue their education. Enrolling in a proper university means that they will be staying here legally. But ICE claimed that this is staying in the U.S. without proper authorization. So the Department of Homeland Security set up a fake university and strong-armed a national accreditation agency to list them. They also placed the fake university on ICE's website as a university approved by them for student visas under the Student and Exchange Visitor Program. So each and every one of these immigrants had every reason to believe that they were dealing with a real university that would allow them to stay and study in the U.S. perfectly legally. Talk about trumped-up charges. Not only that, but the fake university accepted $100 applications from over 600 students and even collected an unknown number of tuition fees. According to one attorney, quote, "I was told by the students that the university reassured them that classes would be held and everything would be fine, and that they are following the immigration laws. The students paid them the tuition fees and were trapped once they realized that classes were not being held, as some didn't have the money to transfer and pay tuition at another university." So ICE gave them every reason to believe they were complying with the law. Moreover, they took enough resources from many of them to prevent them from applying again at a real university. There were over 600 prospective students who had money stolen from them, and at least 149 of them have been arrested. This is absolutely unconscionable. The government basically conned these people into thinking they were complying with the law and arrested them for not realizing they were conned. This is fraud, this is entrapment, and since they took money, it's even embezzlement. And a government that can get away with doing this can get away with anything. But who wants to bet that absolutely none of these officers will face any penalties at all? If you're on the Wi-Fi in a coffee shop or hotel, anyone on that network can get your traffic. Do you really trust all of those strangers? For that matter, do you really trust your ISP? A VPN can protect you from prying eyes, disguise your location, and even foil government censors. It's essential in this day and age, so go to vpn.bogosity.tv and you'll be taken to BoxPN. Starting at just $2.99 a month, you can get unlimited high-speed connections to VPN servers all over the world, and they don't log connections, so your privacy is assured. Traveling abroad, just VPN home, and don't worry about what those other governments are doing. Back at home, stop your ISP from traffic shaping and messing with the quality internet access you're paying good money for. You can connect from multiple machines at once, including your smartphone or tablet, and it supports all the secure standards, including OpenVPN and SSTP. Bypass censors and surveillance with your own secure VPN connection. Go to vpn.bogosity.tv. What should we do about violent video games? If you're an old-time listener of this podcast, you know that the answer is nothing. Because not only do violent video games not make crime worse, if anything, they reduce it. But that's not stopping Pennsylvania lawmakers from considering a 10% tax on video games with a mature or adults-only rating. By the way, remember when the so-called voluntary video game rating system came out as an industry standard responding to threats of censorship and liability by the government? They promised that there would be no penalties whatsoever for video games with a certain rating. Well, sensible people knew that was a lie at the time, didn't we? The 10% tax is supposed to be earmarked for school safety measures because morons like Representative Christopher Quinn hasn't looked at the data. Quote, This bill does not prohibit violent video games. Instead, it simply provides a revenue stream. It tries to recoup some of the societal costs to help make our schools safer by taxing an industry that has been shown to lead to violence. Hey, Quinn, citation needed! It's easy to see the real reason why they want to tax it, though, when you consider that 8 of the 20 best-selling games of 2018 were rated M, including top sellers Red Dead Redemption 2 and Call of Duty Black Ops 4. The Entertainment Software Association, the lobbying group that oversees the ESRB ratings, has been trying to point out to them that there's this little thing called the First Amendment. Taxing something based on its expressive content violates basic free speech protections, and video games are protected as free speech, as the Supreme Court determined in Brown v. Entertainment Merchants Association. The ESA said in a statement, quote, "Numerous authorities, including scientists, medical professionals, government agencies, and the U.S. Supreme Court, found that video games do not cause violence. We encourage Pennsylvania legislators to work with us to raise awareness about parental controls and the ESRB video game rating system, which are effective tools to ensure parents maintain control over the video games played in their home." There is nothing that politicians won't tax, no excuse they won't make, no science they won't lie about, and certainly no tragedies they won't psychopathically use to get their way. We live in a world where light bulbs connect to the internet, and recent attacks on them prove that your online security is under threat like never before, not only your websites, but the internet-enabled devices you buy. And the biggest problem is weak passwords. That's why you need LastPass. LastPass allows you to randomly generate strong, unique passwords on the web and on your internet-enabled devices, all protected by one master password. LastPass sets up in minutes and gives you secure automatic logins throughout the web, synchronizing across all your browsers, all your computers, and even your mobile devices, at home, at work, or on the road. It even securely stores sensitive form data, including credit card numbers, backup sensitive documents, software licenses, Wi-Fi logins, and more. And with LastPass Premium, you can get these benefits on other applications, manage passwords for your entire family, and also get priority customer support. Sign up at password.bogosity.tv for a free month of LastPass Premium. Log in securely everywhere using the last password you'll ever have to remember. Go to password.bogosity.tv and get LastPass now. And now it's time to cry havoc and let slip this week's biggest Bogon emitter. As moronic as the stories we've already covered are, you're probably thinking it was one of those weeks, as if there's something worse than lying about video games, making a fake school and arresting people for applying to it, and actually thinking a pay-what-you-want store could stay open. There's a lot worse, too, that we haven't had time to cover, like the uproar over a Nike shoe that was supposedly racist because it was colored all white, journalists demanding that a department store remove shirts that say fake news, and many others. So what could be worse than all of that? Well, for one, we have cops in South Carolina justifying civil asset forfeiture because it gives them an incentive to do their jobs. Jared Bruder, executive director of the South Carolina Sheriff's Association, said that without the funds from civil forfeiture, officers probably wouldn't go after drug dealers as hard as they do now. Let me reword this. If we couldn't get away with stealing money, cars, and other things from citizens that we don't even charge with a crime, we wouldn't go after people selling a product to people who want to buy it in an exchange where there is no victim. Gee, you don't say. Law enforcement in the state has seized over $17 million in civil forfeiture, which doesn't even require an arrest. Most of that money ends up in the bank accounts of the police departments that seize it. By the way, 71% of these seizures are from black people. Former Malden Police Sergeant Ben Ford said that this is justified because people can go to court to get it back. He is a liar. In 75% of cases, people are completely unable to get their money or goods back, even though they haven't been charged with a crime. 19% ends in a settlement with the citizen not getting all of their stuff back, and in only 6% of cases is the full amount of the cash or property returned. And understand, we're not talking about a proper criminal proceeding where the prosecution has the burden of proof. The burden is on the property owner to prove that there was no illegal activity. Yeah, they have to prove a negative. This turns burden of proof on its head. They also have to cover the attorney's costs themselves. Clemson Police Chief Jimmy Dixon said that without forfeiture money, quote, our ability to conduct undercover narcotics operations could be stifled. Aw, the poor revenuer can't extort people in his prohibition racket anymore. How terrible. They might actually have to focus on real crimes, and then where would we be? Lieutenant Jake Mahoney with the Aiken Police Department said that without this, they'd actually have to, gasp, use money from their budget. How unthinkable! Greenwood Police Chief Gerald Brooks said it would, quote, sharply curtail our drug enforcement activities against people wanting to put something in their own bodies that the government doesn't like. I'm sure South Carolina cops aren't the only one who think this way. They're just the ones who came right out and said it. So how much more evidence do we need that the police are just violent thugs who are running an extortion racket and don't care about the people? So all of that makes these South Carolina cops this week's biggest Bogon emitter. You can save 15% or more at Amazon when you pay with Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash. Just go to purse.bogosity.tv. You can set your own discount. 5% gets you fastest delivery, or you can set it to 30% or more if you're not in a hurry. Purse makes it so easy to save money at Amazon by buying with crypto. Just go to purse.bogosity.tv and start saving now. And now it's time to de-escalate this week's Idiot Extraordinaire. As the Beatles said, if you drive a car, I'll tax the street. If you try to sit, I'll tax your seat. If you get too cold, I'll tax the heat. If you take a walk, I'll tax your feet. It probably never occurred to them to say, if it gets too wet, I'll tax the rain, probably because it's way too ridiculous even for a song filled with hyperbole. But that's exactly what New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy wants to do. The state legislature, in what is already one of the highest tax states in the country, has passed a rain tax bill that is supposed to fund stormwater utilities in each of the state's 565 municipalities. Assemblyman Hal Worth said, quote, every time you think there's nothing left to tax, we come up with something else. It's just never ending down here. The bill would allow steep fees to be levied on properties with large parking lots, long driveways, or big buildings. In other words, they'd be charged by how much area gets rain. And that's businesses and homeowners. If you have a business, you'll be taxed more. If you own a home, you'll be taxed more. If you buy from a business or rent an apartment, you'll have to pay more because the owners of those properties will be taxed more. They could just be honest and say they were increasing the property tax, but that would be wildly unpopular, since citizens already have to do with incredibly confusing property tax bills that are already over twice the national average, of which almost 40% go to county and local governments. Resident Ramon Columna said, quote, they are crazy. As it is, there are too much taxes in New Jersey. Why would we want more taxes, especially on cement, you know? Resident Leslie Cedillo said, quote, our homeowners' taxes are as high as they can possibly be. They shouldn't go any higher. It's not fair. So they have to couch it in language about helping the environment. Senate President Steve Sweeney said, quote, with all the salt we've had on our roads recently, that's all running into the sewer systems. So you can't ignore problems because they don't go away. Yeah, all that salt from runoff is terrible. Can you imagine what would happen if it got into our oceans? Sweeney pointed out that most states already have stormwater utilities. That's true, but they don't tax rainfall to pay for it. Senator Tom Keene said, quote, we all want to protect our environment. We all want to preserve it for future generations. But this is a weighted tax. The citizens of New Jersey, really with no oversight and no way to defend themselves against tax increases at local levels. But Senator Richard Cody was having none of it. Quote, it's a small cost to live safely. Other supporters claimed that the tax would help reduce flooding. Others said it would combat climate change. How is a mystery solved only in their minds? None of them seem to regard the fact that New Jersey's water quality is the best it's been in decades. It's one thing to increase people's property tax because government has completely mismanaged everything, but taxing the weather, something citizens and businesses don't have any control over, that has to make the New Jersey governor and other politicians behind this tax this week's Idiot Extraordinaire. Well, that wraps up the Staying Home to Watch the Rain edition of the Bogosity podcast. Come join the discussion at discord.bogosity.tv and feel free to send a question, statement, news article, or rant in text or audio to podcast@bogosity.tv. This podcast depends on you to keep going, so please donate to Shane DK on PayPal, or if you want to use crypto, you can donate at altcoins.bogosity.tv. You can also contribute at patreon.bogosity.tv or subscribestar.bogosity.tv to get the podcast and YouTube videos early and ad-free. Or just visit my YouTube channel or website using the Airtime extension at airtime.bogosity.tv. Thank you for listening. Until next time, here's a quote from John Kenneth Galbraith. The American colonies, all know, were greatly opposed to taxation without representation. They were also a less celebrated quality, equally opposed to taxation with representation. The Bogosity podcast is licensed under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License. Bogosity. You can now get 2 free audiobook downloads and a 30-day free trial at audible.bogosity.tv. Your choice from the world's largest selection of over 180,000 digital audiobooks and spoken word content for your iOS or Android device, Kindle, or MP3 player. Go to audible.bogosity.tv now.